Вітаю. Цей брифінг присвячено брехні держави-агресора.
Greetings. This briefing is devoted to the lies of the aggressor state, Russia. And let's start with how it tells lies to all of humanity about how Russian missiles destroyed a house in the Ukrainian city of Uman, killing over 20 civilians. Among them are 6 children. So in its international releases, the aggressor state claims that it struck only military objects. I quote the propagandist Solovyev. The Russian armed forces launched a missile strike with precision-guided weapons at the points of temporary deployment of units of the reserves of the armed forces of Ukraine. The advance of enemy reserves into the combat areas was stopped. They quote in turn the Ministry of Defense of Russia itself. Then the Telegram channel Putin in Telegram wrote, that night the Russian armed forces carried out cruise missile attacks on Ukraine's military infrastructure. Then, international propaganda resource Russia Today, the Ministry of Defense emphasizes that missile strikes are carried out exclusively on Ukrainian military facilities. That is in the manner of such a primitive untruth. They are trying to deflect from their side the accusation against Russia itself due to the fact that ordinary civilians die as a result of these missile strikes in cities located very far from the front line. In the same way, the aggressor state reports lies, claiming, for example, that the victims of their aggression are actually victims of supposed missile strikes from Ukraine. In particular, the Russian state TV channel Russia 1. It presented the audience with video footage of a high-rise building destroyed by a Russian missile in Uman, as if shelling occupied Donbas by the Ukrainian army. The quote from Russian propagandists reads as follows: Ukrainian fighters fired again at Donbas at night. At the same time, Solovyev, the same Russian state propagandist, shows a video of a Ukrainian woman who suffered from an attack on Uman in his Telegram channel, as if it were a woman who suffered from an attack on Donetsk. That is a primitive lie, and this is not the first time in all the years of Russian aggression. They claimed that it was not they who were shelling Ukrainian civilians, but Ukraine was shelling Donbas. And it is worth recalling how very recently, almost a year after the terrible rocket attack on the railway station in Kramatorsk, international human rights organizations established that it was a Russian rocket. Whereas immediately after the tragedy, all the last month the propaganda said that it was apparently the Ukrainians themselves that hit the Kramatorsk station, or that it was a Russian missile shot down by the Ukrainian air defense system. In fact, it was exactly primitive lie. It was a Russian missile that hit the station in Kramatorsk. The same happens now. In the case of Uman, we go further in Russian efforts to sue humanity into fools. Russia is looking for any available speakers in order to spread their propaganda. In particular, they found in Turkey one of the possible speakers of this lie. It turned out to be the leader of the Turkish party, Rodina Togu, who in his statements calls for recognizing Crimea as Russian territory, as well as Donbas, Zaporizhia and Kherson regions, which are occupied by Russia. At the same time, he is quoted by the Russian state agency TASS. Who is this person? If you look at the political map of Turkey, then you can mention Rodina party has no support. It has 0 deputies in the parliament, as well as lower-level community assemblies. In the elections that was held in 2015, they had less than 1% of the result. In the elections in 2018, also less than 1% of the national result. This party is known for repeating everything that is beneficial to them, according to Moscow propaganda. In particular, in addition to the call to recognize Crimea as a part of Russia, they, for example, called to recognize Abkhazia as a part of Russia, called for the withdrawal of United States and NATO bases from the territory of Turkey, and also supported the idea of Russia invading the territory of Ukraine. Another example of a lie that is traditionally heard by propagandists is the creation of fake publications that they refer to. This time in Poland, they once again resorted to services of an independent political newspaper. The publication is a translation of Russia Today articles into Polish, and this publication, through its resources, is now putting out a fake about the fact that Poland is supposedly forming an international corps for volunteers from Ukraine, Poland and Lithuania, who will fight on the territory of Ukraine. At the same time, they seem to depict the symbol, the coat of arms of this corps. If you look closely, it turns out that this is the Lithuanian Polish-Ukrainian Brigade named after Prince Konstantin Ostrowski, which was created back in 2016, which operates exclusively under the mandate of the UN Security Council, where Russia has the right of veto, did not approve any operations on the territory of Ukraine, and accordingly, this information from the first to the last word is is simply a fake, which the Russian state propaganda machine later launders through its own resources already on the domestic market, in particular through the state Russian newspaper. Well, as an example of the collapse of Russian propaganda, you can see how the television channel Russia 1, Russia 24 broadcasts the program Watch. Psychics and sorcerers are already invited there in order to make assumptions about Russia's very quick victory in the war they started against Ukraine. It is very funny to watch when a person, who can hardly be called the bearer of any knowledge or values for the entire multi-million country, tells about what they say that Russia will not go down. The American currency will soon roll on the roads and Russia's victory is inevitable. At the same time, no one even explains to the stupefied viewers that the mentioned information is just fiction. Once again, this proves that if propaganda has nothing to bring to its audience, it is necessary to invent informational excuses. I traditionally end the briefing with a call not to trust Russian propaganda, which is built on total fakes. If you live abroad, watch the Ukrainian foreign language channels Freedom and UA TV in English and Russian, as well as trust exclusively Ukrainian official media, Ukrainian state and military political leadership. See you.
Without festive events on Victory Day, the still Russian-controlled part of the Kherson region will not organize festive events by May 9.
Близится святая дата для всех россиян.
The sacred date for all Russians is approaching, and not only May 9th, Victory Day. Are you planning to hold a parade and some kind of celebrations in the Kherson region? Mass events in the organizational plan will not be held. In order, the first, additional security. Also for public law purposes. We believe that today it is impractical.
As the author of the question put it, the celebration of this is a sacral date for Russia was also cancelled the day before in Crimea. The decision is reportedly also driven by security concerns. For the same reason, residents of the border territories with Ukraine, the Kursk and Belgorod regions of Russia, will remain without parades, processions and fireworks. At the same time, the Russian-appointed authorities of the Donetsk, Zaporizhia and Lugansk region have not made such statements so far. But such decision seems to be upcoming. So what happened? Last year they did something similar to parades in the occupied Kherson. There were also processions in events in Mariupol while fighting was still taking place at Azovstal. Firstly, now there will simply be no one to take part in the parades. Russia has neither human resources, judging by the crisis in mobilization campaign for the war against Ukraine, nor equipment, judging by the transfer of old T-54 tanks to service again, which are about 70 years old now. They will scrape together something only for Moscow, St. Petersburg, Volgograd and perhaps a couple more large cities, that's all.
This is the prerogative of heads of regions. Naturally, they make appropriate decisions based on the interests of ensuring the safety of citizens. This is the main and only priority. As for the main parade, it is being prepared and planned to be held.
Secondly, Donetsk and Melitopol are under the full fire control of the armed forces of Ukraine. A really logical reason not to gather a bunch of people and equipment in one place in one day. So it turns out that the sacral date will not be festive in the sacred territories for Russia, which are also under the illegal occupation. Thirdly, they may not have time to celebrate. We still don't know where and when the long-anticipated Ukrainian counterattack will take place.